When you're dealing with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, the first thing you notice is their reflex to run. It's almost instinctive. The moment closeness grows, the moment vulnerability becomes real, they retreat. They pull back, not because you've done something wrong, but because intimacy to them feels like suffocation. To the avoidant, closeness is danger, dependency is weakness, and love is a battlefield where they've already decided the safest position is behind walls. That's their default mode distance. But here's the paradox. When you begin to notice them not just running, but returning, that's when something profound is happening beneath the surface. And you need to recognize it for what it is. Most people misinterpret the running. They see withdrawal as a verdict. They don't care. They're not interested. They don't love me. But here's the truth you need to absorb. Running is not the absence of love. For the avoidant, running is a defense against the intensity of love. And this is where it gets powerful. When you see them return after pulling away, that is not casual. That is not small. That is monumental. It means love is winning a war inside them. Think about it. An avoidant finds safety in isolation. They convince themselves, I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own. So if they leave and then find themselves circling back to you, it means something inside them is breaking through that narrative. It means your presence has disrupted their survival strategy. That pull to return is not habit. It's love. It's attraction that defies their logic. It's the part of them that knows, deep down, connection is what they crave, no matter how much they've tried to suppress it. Now, here's where most people make a mistake. They see the retreat and they panic. They see the distance and they assume it's over. So they walk away and they never give the relationship a chance to evolve past the fear. But let me ask you, how many times in your own life have you run from the very thing you wanted most simply because it scared you? How many opportunities, relationships, or dreams have you sabotaged because they demanded more vulnerability than you were willing to give? The avoidant is no different. Their running is not rejection of you. It's rejection of their own fear. And when they return, it's because you've become more powerful to them than the fear itself. This is not about tolerating endless cycles of disappearance and reappearance. I'm not telling you to accept breadcrumbs or cling to toxic patterns. No, this is about discernment. It's about understanding when a genuine shift is happening. When they start to come back, not out of convenience, not out of boredom, but out of a gravitational pull they can't resist, that's when you know love is cracking through the concrete. And if you miss that moment, if you walk away too soon, you may never witness the transformation that was about to unfold. Psychologically, what's happening in that return is the slow dismantling of the avoidance belief system. They're testing something dangerous to them, closeness. They're experimenting with intimacy inch by inch, and every step they take back toward you is a risk they never thought they'd take. They are choosing connection over self-preservation, and that is no small victory. That's love in its rawest form. Love that scares them, but draws them in any way. Philosophically, there's something deeply human about this. We are all torn between the instinct to protect ourselves and the longing to be known. The avoidant simply lives in that tension more visibly than most. Their running and returning is not random. It's the drama of the human soul trying to reconcile safety with intimacy. And when you see them return, what you're really witnessing is the courage to lean into love despite the terror of loss. That's not weakness. It's strength in disguise. So here's what I want you to remember. If you see the shift from running to returning, don't dismiss it. Don't label it as confusion or immaturity. Look deeper. See it for what it truly is, a sign that their love for you is stronger than their fear of you. That is a seismic shift in their inner world. And if you can hold steady in that moment, not chasing, not panicking, but simply standing firm in your own strength, you give them the one thing they've never had, a safe space to love without fear. That's when transformation begins. So the next time you see an avoidant run and then return, don't mistake it for inconsistency. Don't walk away thinking it's meaningless. Understand that in their world, coming back is not casual. It's monumental. It is love trying to break free from fear. And if you can recognize that, you will not only change the relationship, you will change the way you see love itself. Because here's the truth, when someone keeps returning to you, even when it terrifies them, it means one thing. Love is stronger than fear. If you really want to know when an avoidant is falling in love with you, stop looking for the big, flashy declarations. They're not going to shout it from the rooftops. They're not going to flood your phone with love poems or wear their heart on their sleeve. That's not how they're wired. For the avoidant, love doesn't come as an explosion. It comes as cracks in the armor. Small leaks of vulnerability. Subtle moments when their guard drops and you glimpse the person behind the fortress. And those moments matter more than any words you could ever hear. You have to understand what that armor is made of. An avoidant didn't build their walls out of arrogance or malice. They built them out of survival. Somewhere along the way, they learned that closeness was dangerous. Maybe they were raised in an environment where emotions weren't safe. Maybe they were taught that needing someone made you weak. Maybe they had loved once, and it ended in betrayal so deep they swore never to let it happen again. Whatever the origin, the result is the same. They hide behind independence, control, and distance. And that armor becomes their identity. But here's the fascinating truth. Love has a way of leaking through even the thickest defenses. You'll notice it in small, almost invisible ways. The moment they share a piece of their past they never told anyone. The moment they admit they're afraid, insecure, or uncertain. The moment they let you see tears they tried to swallow. To you, it might look like an ordinary conversation, but in their world, that is groundbreaking. That is them handing you the keys to the part of themselves they swore would stay locked forever. Most people miss it. They're so busy looking for the grand gesture. I love you. Flowers, constant affection, that they overlook the subtle, powerful signals. They miss the fact that when an avoidant starts talking about their family, or their childhood, or the moments they regret, they're not just talking. They're exposing. And for someone who has spent a lifetime hiding, that exposure is an act of love. Psychologically, what's happening here is fascinating. Vulnerability for an avoidant triggers the same fight or flight response as danger. Their brain registers closeness as risk. So when they override that instinct, even for a second, it means something has shifted. It means their emotional system, trained to avoid exposure, has been interrupted by something stronger to trust. And trust is not given lightly by an avoidant. If you're seeing their armor leak, it's because you've become an exception to the rule. You've become safe. And make no mistake, that safety is a currency more valuable to them than passion, attraction, or even excitement. Safety is what they crave but rarely admit. Philosophically, think about what vulnerability really is. It is the willingness to be wounded, to drop the shield knowing the sword could strike. When an avoidant becomes vulnerable with you, they are saying, without words, I am willing to risk pain to let you closer. That is love in its purest, most terrifying form. And if you fail to see it, if you dismiss it as too little or too late, you miss the sacredness of that offering. Now, this doesn't mean you settle for crumbs. It doesn't mean you lower your standards and celebrate minimal effort. What it does mean is that you need to develop the ability to discern the difference between manipulation and vulnerability, between performance and authenticity. The avoidant who lets their armor leak is not playing games. They're not trying to trap you. They're stepping onto unfamiliar ground, testing if love can exist without devastation. And if you recognize it, if you respond not with judgment but with presence, you reinforce that trust. You build a bridge where once there was only a wall. This is where most relationships with avoidance either evolve or collapse. If you miss those leaks, If you demand more before acknowledging what's happening, they shut down again. They say to themselves, see, I was right. Vulnerability isn't safe. But if you catch it, if you value it, if you hold it carefully, you give them a reason to keep opening. And slowly, those leaks become cracks, and those cracks become doorways. So I want you to shift your perspective. Stop looking for love only in the ways you expect it. Start looking for it in the ways they fear to show it. When they let their guard down, even for a moment. Don't brush it aside. Don't walk away thinking it wasn't enough. See it for what it truly is. A profound act of love from someone who swore they'd never give it. Because here's the truth. When an avoidant leaks vulnerability, they're not losing control. They're giving you their heart in the only way they know how. And if you honor that moment, you're not just witnessing love, you're becoming the reason they finally believe it's safe to stay. One of the most misunderstood dynamics in relationships with avoidants is the way they use control. For them, control isn't about dominating you. It's about protecting themselves. Their favorite form of control is distance. If they can control how close you get, they can control how much you can hurt them. If they can regulate the space between you, they believe they can regulate the risk. That's why avoidants are masters at keeping just enough closeness to feel connected, but just enough distance to feel safe. It's a delicate balance, and it's exhausting for them, even if they'll never admit it. But here's where things get fascinating when you see that balance start to shift when they begin to choose connection over control. That is when you know something profound is happening inside of them. That's not a surface level adjustment. That's not casual behavior. That's an earthquake in their internal world. Think about it this way. For an avoidant, control equals survival. They live by rules like, don't get too close. Don't rely on anyone. Don't let anyone rely on you. Control is the lens through which they navigate every relationship. So when they start to loosen that grip, when they initiate spending more time with you, when they start texting you first, when they allow themselves to be seen consistently, it's because something has become more important to them than safety. And that something is connection with you. Most people miss this because they don't understand the psychology underneath it. They see the avoidance little efforts and think, well, that's basic. That's what anyone should do. But what's basic for you is monumental for them. You might think it's normal for someone to share their schedule, include you in their plans, or call just to hear your voice. For an avoidant, that's surrender. That's them breaking their most sacred rules. Never let anyone have that much access. When they choose connection over control, they're handing you the one thing they've clung to their entire life, the right to dictate distance. Why does this matter? Because connection is the very thing they fear, and yet it's the very thing they crave. Every human being is wired for it. You, me, them, we are designed to bond. We are designed to be seen, to be known, to be loved. The avoidant spends their life denying this truth. But denial only works for so long. Eventually, the soul demands what the fear has tried to bury. And when they choose connection over control, you are watching that battle unfold in real time. Fear is losing. Love is winning. Philosophically, there's something extraordinary about this moment. Choosing connection means surrendering to something bigger than the self. It means admitting that you can't micromanage love. You can't strategize safety. You can't control every outcome. Connection requires letting go. And for the avoidant, letting go is the one thing they've resisted their entire life. When they do it, even in small increments, it is evidence of love that has grown too powerful to ignore. Now here's the challenge if you don't see it. If you treat it as insignificant, they retreat back to control. They tell themselves, I knew it. Closeness isn't safe. That's why awareness is everything. You have to be able to discern the shift. When they start showing up more, when they start letting you into their daily world, when they prioritize time with you over their rigid routines, don't dismiss it. Don't roll your eyes and say, well, finally. Recognize the magnitude of what's happening. They are choosing connection over control, and for them, that is a radical act of love. This doesn't mean you lower your standards or accept inconsistency forever. No, this means you see progress where progress is real. You honor the steps that show growth, and by doing so, you create the conditions for more growth. Because the moment an avoidant feels they can connect without losing themselves, they keep choosing it. And every time they choose it, their grip on control weakens, and their capacity for intimacy grows. So the next time you notice them texting first, the next time they plan a weekend with you, the next time they let you into the private corners of their life, don't underestimate it. Don't take it for granted. Understand that what you're seeing is not random. It is love reshaping their instincts. It is fear bowing to connection. And that shift is everything. Because when someone who has spent their life worshiping control begins to surrender it for the sake of being close to you, you're not just witnessing affection. You're witnessing transformation. And if you can recognize that, if you can honor that, you don't just receive their love, you become the reason they finally learn how to give it. One of the most painful dynamics people experience with avoidance is the inconsistency. You know what I mean? The hot and cold pattern. One day they're present, attentive, affectionate, and the next day they're distant, silent, almost like you don't exist. It feels like a roller coaster, and for the person on the receiving end, it creates anxiety, confusion, and self-doubt. You start wondering, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Am I not enough? That inconsistency becomes emotional chaos. But here's the breakthrough you need to understand when an avoidant begins to love you deeply. One of the first signs of transformation is that inconsistency starts to fade. The hot and cold game loses its grip. And slowly, what replaces it is consistency. And I want you to really get this. Consistency is not a small thing. Consistency for an avoidant is revolutionary. You see, inconsistency is their shield. It's how they manage closeness. It allows them to taste connection without fully committing to it. It allows them to dip in when it feels safe and pull out when it feels threatening. That hot and cold rhythm isn't random. It's a strategy. It's their way of keeping control. But when they start showing up steadily, when they stop disappearing for days at a time, when they begin to keep their word, that's not just behavioral change. That's evidence of a deeper psychological shift. Think about it. Consistency requires trust. Consistency requires reliability. Consistency requires letting go of the constant urge to self-protect. For someone who's spent their whole life sabotaging connection to stay safe, consistency means they're no longer operating out of fear. They're beginning to believe that staying close won't destroy them. That being present won't trap them. That loving you steadily won't erase their identity. That's a huge internal leap. Most people don't see it for what it is. They'll say, well, that's the bare minimum. That's what anyone should do. And yes, you're right. That is what healthy people do. But remember, we're not talking about someone with a secure wiring. We're talking about someone whose nervous system has been trained for years, maybe decades, to run from consistency. So when they start breaking that pattern, it's not just the bare minimum, it's a miracle of growth. It's a sign that love is finally overriding the programming. Psychologically, what's happening is a rewiring. The avoidant nervous system is learning that closeness is not equal to danger. Each time they stay present instead of pulling away, they're creating a new association. I can be close and still be safe. I can be steady and still be free. I can show up consistently and still be me. That new association is the foundation of lasting intimacy. Without consistency, you can't build trust. Without trust, you can't build love. So when the avoidant begins showing consistency, what you're seeing is the first bricks of a real, enduring bond being laid down. Philosophically, this is profound. Inconsistency is fragmentation. It divides the self. It creates instability. Consistency, on the other hand, is alignment. It means their actions and their heart are no longer at war. It means the push and pull is dissolving, and they are becoming integrated. What they feel and what they do are starting to line up. And when that alignment happens, love is no longer a battlefield. It becomes a steady current. Now, here's the mistake most people make. They see consistency emerge and they dismiss it as too little, too late. They fail to recognize how monumental it really is. And when they do that, the avoidant feels unseen. They feel like their effort didn't matter. And what do? They retreat back into the old cycle. That's why awareness is so critical. You don't reward inconsistency, but you absolutely must acknowledge progress. When you see them showing up more steadily, when you notice the hot and cold pattern fading, honor it. Because honoring it doesn't just validate them, it reinforces the new behavior. And reinforcement is what locks in change. So if you're in that place right now, if you've been spinning on the roller coaster of inconsistency, pay attention. Look for the subtle signs of steadiness beginning to emerge. Look for the shift from sporadic effort to reliable presence. That's not weakness. That's not performance. That's love breaking through fear. And here's the truth you need to hold on to. Consistency is the highest form of love an avoidant can give. It is their way of saying, I'm not running anymore. I'm here, and I'm choosing to stay. So the next time you see the hot and cold cycle begin to fade, don't underestimate it. Don't brush it off. Recognize it for what it is, a sign that their love for you has become stronger than their fear of losing themselves. And that's the moment when love stops being a game and starts becoming real. If there's one thing that terrifies an avoidant more than intimacy, it's rejection. For them, rejection isn't just painful. It feels catastrophic. It confirms every belief they've built their life around. People can't be trusted. If I get too close, I'll lose myself. If I open up, I'll be abandoned. That fear is why they keep their distance. That fear is why they prefer control over closeness. Because if you never fully show up, you never risk being fully rejected. But here's what makes the shift so profound when an avoidant starts to risk rejection. When they begin leaning in despite the possibility of being hurt, you are watching love overpower fear in real time. That is not a small thing. That is the deepest evidence that they're falling for you. Think about how rejection works in their world. If they confess feelings and you don't feel the same, the pain is unbearable. If they open up about their past and you judge them, it cuts deeper than anything else. If they let you in and you walk away, it feels like the ultimate confirmation that closeness is dangerous. That's why they'd rather say nothing. That's why they keep everything surface level. Distance feels safer than the possibility of rejection. So when you see them step into that risk, when they ask where they stand with you, when they tell you they've been thinking about the future, when they admit they miss you, that's not casual talk. That's courage. That's them choosing to put their heart on the line, even though every fiber of their being is screaming, don't do it. Protect yourself. Psychologically, what's happening here is monumental. Avoidants regulate their entire emotional life around one principle: don't get too close, because if you get close, you'll get hurt. It's a deeply ingrained survival strategy. So when they start risking rejection, they're breaking their own rules. They're rewriting the script that has defined their life. They're telling themselves, connection might be worth the risk. Love might be more important than safety. That's not just emotional growth. That's transformation at the level of identity. And let's not miss the bigger picture here. To risk rejection is to acknowledge a deep human truth: love is never guaranteed. None of us can control the outcome of intimacy. The very nature of love is vulnerability. It requires stepping into the unknown, risking pain for the possibility of connection. Secure people take that risk more naturally. Anxious people take it impulsively. But avoidance, for them, it's the highest leap. It means they're finally aligning with the universal truth love is only real if you're willing to lose. Philosophically, this moment is profound. Avoidants spend their lives protecting their ego from the humiliation of rejection, but love demands humility. Love demands surrender. To risk rejection is to say, my desire to connect is greater than my need to protect myself. That is not weakness. That is power. That is a declaration that they are finally prioritizing love over ego, intimacy over isolation, truth over fear. Now here's the critical part. If you don't see it, if you dismiss it, if you meet their vulnerability with indifference, you reinforce their deepest fear. They'll retreat. They'll tell themselves, I knew it. I should never have opened up. That's why discernment is so essential. I'm not saying you reward minimal effort or ignore your own needs. What I'm saying is that when you recognize real risk, the moment they lean in with honesty, the moment they expose their heart, you must see it for what it is. That recognition doesn't just affirm them. It creates the conditions for more risk, more openness, more love. So pay attention to the signs. Do they initiate conversations about feelings? Do they ask you if you're happy? Do they check in about the future? Do they show affection without waiting for you to lead? These are not random. These are not meaningless. These are signs that love is stronger than fear. That connection is more important to them than self-protection. And here's the truth you need to carry with you. When an avoidant risks rejection, they're not just expressing love. They're rewriting their story. They're saying, for you, I'm willing to step into the fire. For you, I'm willing to face the very thing I've run from my whole life. That is love in its most powerful form. So the next time you see an avoidant risk rejection, don't underestimate it. Don't brush it aside. Understand the gravity of that moment. Because when someone chooses to risk rejection instead of avoiding it, they're telling you the clearest truth of all. You matter more to them than their fear. And that's not just a sign of love. That's a revolution inside their soul. If there's one pattern that defines avoidance, it's silence. Not just ordinary silence, the kind of silence that feels like abandonment, the kind where they shut down, disappear, retreat into themselves, and leave you wondering if they even care at all. Their silence is their refuge. It's how they regain control when closeness feels overwhelming. It's their way of saying, I'm terrified, without ever speaking a word. And for most people, that silence feels like rejection. It feels like indifference. It feels like love has died. But here's the shift you need to look for. When that silence begins to transform into presence. When the avoidant who used to disappear suddenly stays. When the person who once hid in silence begins to show up with words, actions, touch, and consistency. That's not small. That's not trivial. That is seismic. That is love breaking through fear in its most visible form. You see, silence is the avoidant's first defense. They've learned that if they say nothing, they can't say the wrong thing. If they do nothing, they can't be rejected for doing too much. If they withdraw, they can't be abandoned because they've already abandoned you first. Silence is safety. Silence is control. Silence is self-protection at the deepest level. So when they replace that silence with presence, when they choose to engage instead of disappear, you're watching them dismantle their oldest survival strategy. That's not just emotional growth. That's transformation. That's evidence that their love for you has become stronger than their fear of you. Think about how powerful this shift is. Presence is the opposite of avoidance. Presence means, I'm here, even when it's uncomfortable. Presence means, I'm not running, even though my instinct tells me to. Presence means, I'm going to show up in the moments I once escaped. And for an avoidant, that is everything. Psychologically, this change reveals a reprogramming of their nervous system. Their silence once calmed their fear of closeness. But now they've learned that being present with you calms that fear even more. Their brain is rewriting the script. Silence equals safety, is being replaced with presence equals connection, and connection is safe. That's not just behavior, that's new wiring. And new wiring is the foundation of lasting love. Philosophically, presence is the ultimate gift. Silence isolates. Silence separates. Silence keeps love out of reach. But presence unites. Presence heals. Presence communicates something deeper than words. I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Presence is the essence of love itself. Because love without presence isn't love, it's theory. Love without presence is just a word. Presence is what makes love real, and I want you to hear this clearly. When an avoidant chooses presence over silence, it is not because it's easy. It's because their love for you is greater than the comfort of escape. It means they've decided that being with you is worth the discomfort of vulnerability. It means you've become their reason to stay grounded when everything in them wants to run. That is not casual. That is not temporary. That is love manifesting in the most human, most tangible way. But here's the challenge. Many people miss it. They're so used to resenting the silence that they don't